Do I get a minute? Good evening, and welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Works and Infrastructure Committee of the Whole regular meeting. It is Monday, August 12th, and I would like a roll call, please.
Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here?
Alderman Bevere.
Here.
Alderman Davalos.
Here.
Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Krischel.
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Okay, if you would all please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item is citizens' comments. If anyone has any comments right now, or if they don't, if they want to talk during, when we have the, during the business of the meeting for the item that is on the agenda, they are more than welcome to get up at that time and speak. Okay, officials and staff comments. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, Justin Miller, your last meeting with us tonight. You're leaving us Wednesday for what I assume is not a lateral move. You're moving up in another community, a bigger community, more responsibility. All good things. We'll miss you. You've done a terrific job, and keep us informed. I'm sure you have a bright future. We'll want to see all your success.
Yep.
A couple of other things. I still have an opening on the Tourism and Arts Commission that I need to fill. So we're looking for a volunteer. I'll say it again. It's a wonderful group of people who do very substantive work for us and manage to have fun while they do it. So think about it. It would be expand your horizons, make some new friends, do something great for the community. And also we have the need for a part-time municipal van driver. This is getting critical. It's really crimping our operation. We've had a couple of people leave. So that if you're at all interested in that part-time position, please let us know. It's a vital service that we provide to the community, and we're not able to do it as well as we would like to because we don't have someone to help us out. So please think about it. Send me an email, stop in at City Hall. Applications are available here and online. And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to clarify something. Last Monday, Pat O'Connor talked about the weeds at the Warrenville entrance sign on Ferry Road, just east of River Road. Those aren't weeds. Those are daylilies that have seen better days because of the dryness. And the Knights of Columbus, if you'll notice, the rest of our entrance signs are doing an awesome job keeping up with the flowers and the weeds, and even as dry as it is, they're pretty hard to pull out nowadays. So I wanted to let people know that those are not weeds. And he was just a little confused, but we're glad he notices things, so that's okay too. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, anything? Okay, nothing. Okay, Alderman? Alderman Widener?
I'd just like to thank Justin Miller for his involvement with the Warrenville Bicyclist Pedestrian Advisory Group. He was the city staff liaison to that group, and from day one when he was involved with our initiatives, he was positive, professional, efficient, and always helpful. And I know he has a bright career in front of him. And but I think the city of Warrenville will miss his talents in the meantime. So good luck, Justin, and thank you for all you've done to make Warrenville a bicycle-friendly community. Thank you.
Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, I want to thank the police department for doing a great job at National Night Out last week. It was a wonderful event. I hope everybody here was able to attend, at least some of it. It was very well attended, beautiful evening, and I think that our police officers did a great job of hosting that and putting on a good outreach opportunity to the community. It's wonderful to see our local businesses be so generous and give us all free food and samples and coupons and snacks and make sure everybody has a nice evening out. So I hope that this helps people remember to not only have a good relationship with the police department, but take advantage of our parks and take advantage of our local businesses and amenities. And look forward to doing it again next year.
Thank you. And Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. I would also like to thank Justin. I'm the liaison to the Environmental Advisory Commission, and so the last several years, there's a lot going on in environmental things, and Justin was sort of the go-to person in Public Works that we would talk to, and I'm pretty convinced he was doing a lot of reading and research during his lunch hour and other hours before we started making decisions on the many things that we've done. And so I will miss his work ethic and his commitment and his advice and knowledge. So thank you, Justin, very much.
Okay, and I also would like to thank Justin. Obviously, I'm the chairperson for Public Works and Infrastructure, and that's pretty much what he does. So it was a pleasure working with you, and I wish you well. Thank you. Staff, any comments? No? Phil?
As you may know, the Warrenville Road reconstruction project is underway. The contractor's out there working on various concrete repairs right now. We were originally scheduled to close the road next week to perform the removal of the bricks and then paving of most of the asphalt. School district contacted us with concerns about that being the first week of school, so we've talked with the contractor and they're going to delay that a week. So the week the road will be closed is August 26th, not next week. I'll update that on our website. I'll get something out on Facebook on that as well. I've already notified the police, fire, the school district, St. Irene's, to let them know that that date has changed. But that's going to be, for a week, it's going to be a lot of disturbance and inconvenience, but after that, should be minimal inconvenience after.
Christina? No. Okay. City Administrator?
I have nothing to add, thank you.
All right, now we should get down to the business of the meeting. Number one, consideration of aesthetic enhancement project. That would be Assistant City Administrator Christina White.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to just offer a brief introduction and then pass the microphone to our Tourism and Arts Commission Chair, Monica Johnson. Before I do that, I just wanted to point out to all of you that we did have to amend the recommended motion for this evening, so there should be a packet on your dais with a memo and an updated revised contract for your review. That should be the final form of the contract that will be presented at the next City Council meeting, assuming approval this evening. So the recommendation on that cover memo is the correct recommendation for this evening. And with that, I will pass the microphone to our TAC Chair, Monica Johnson.
Thank you, and hello to all of you. Before we talk about the public art installation that TAC would like to propose for fiscal year 2020, I wanted to give you all an update on how our process for locating and acquiring public artwork has changed in a very exciting way since the last time I spoke to you. After installing our first project last summer, which you remember was the bronze origami sculptures in Leon Schmidt Park of the seed sower and the acorns, TAC commissioners realized our process needed to be streamlined if we are to be charged with installing public artwork in the city every year. The first project had taken us about 2 years. So TAC was able to form a professional relationship with a small firm called Art Environments, whose sole mission is to connect companies and groups like TAC with artists whose work lends itself to aesthetic enhancement projects just like ours. So using TAC's specs and our ideas and our budget, we now have a professional resource for locating artwork and artists for consideration, when before this had been the most daunting aspect of our challenge, by far. So the cost for the service is built into the cost of the artwork. So it's been ideal for our situation. And it's given us many opportunities to consider artwork by artists we may never have known about if we had had to find them ourselves. First, do you have any questions about that aspect of the memo before I go on with our proposal? Okay.
Go right ahead.
So with that, TAC is excited to propose our second aesthetic enhancement project, which will be completed in fiscal year 20, most likely in just the next few months. The piece we propose is, a photo of it is in your packet. It's been designed by a sculptor named Matthew Plasek. He's been working as an artist for over 30 years, and he has an impressive international resume. He lives and works in Nebraska, and since the early 1990s, he's specialized in large-scale pieces, some of which are about 90 feet tall. When TAC began looking for an artist from whom we might commission our second project, we were drawn again and again to Matthew's diverse portfolio of large-scale sculptural pieces. So TAC would like to propose that we commission a stainless steel sculpture from Plasek Studios featuring a police officer holding the hand of a child. As you can see in the concept drawing, the figures appear to be emerging from a wall of words that stacks 7 feet high by about 6 feet wide. These words describe the commitment and characteristics of a Warrenville police officer. You can see the concept drawing in your packet on the second page, as you're looking at. At the top of the next page, page 3, you can see a current draft of the front view of the wall showing the cutout silhouette of the officer and child and how the words weave together. The solid stainless steel officer and child that are installed at an angle to this wall are not pictured in this front view photo, so it's easier to see the silhouette and the words. The solid figures will swing out from the wall to about 5 feet away from it. The cost of the sculpture is $33,000, and it includes the design and the fabrication of the sculpture. Rather than packing and shipping this very large piece, the artist has offered to deliver the piece from Nebraska to Warrenville and to install it himself. This cost for delivery and installation would not exceed $1,500. TAC realizes the total to design and purchase and install this piece goes above the $30,000 budget by $4,500. TAC commissioners are discovering, as we explore options for commissioning and installing public artwork, that it's quite challenging to purchase art pieces and to provide for the shipping and installation using only 1 year's budgeted amount. And you might remember that we encountered the same situation last year with our first project. In order to complete that project, the City Council granted us permission to divide the purchase and delivery of the 4 companion pieces in the 2018 project so that funds from both fiscal year 2018 and 2019 were utilized to fully complete the project. Due to the timing of the completion of this proposed project and the fact that it is not comprised of multiple pieces that we can divide into, 2 separate projects, TAC would not be able to make a similar request in this case. So where would this sculpture go? TAC would like to propose that this sculpture be installed on the grounds of the Warrenville Police Department at the corner of Tracy Place and Warrenville Road. And we have a photograph in your packet showing you the corner. We believe this location would offer the highest visibility for the piece. Public Works has approved the location and agreed to do the site prep, which would include relocating a boulder and removing a tree that, when we studied it, does not look healthy enough to withstand very many more hot drought summers and cold winters. So, let's see. So in order to install this piece securely, Public Works would pour 4 concrete piers, which also appear on page 4 of your packet, the diagram, the specs from the artist. Matthew Plasek would begin on this piece immediately when TAC receives approval to proceed, and he would plan to deliver the piece and install it in the prepared site later this fall, just a few months from now. He's willing to store the finished piece without charge if Public Works requires more time to prepare the site. Public Works has stated that the minimal work required for preparing the installation will fit into this fall's work plan. So when considering a location for this second aesthetic enhancement project, TAC chose to honor our city's police officers by acknowledging the connection the officers have with the community and the dedication with which they serve. TAC turned to Chief Toronto and the Warrenville Police Department's mission statement to compile a list of words for the sculpture that best reflect the daily commitment of Warrenville's police officers. The words in the sculpture include bravery, integrity, service, dedication, community, compassion, protection, trust, duty, honor, and respect. Matthew Plassek's piece combines these words and ideas with the figure of an officer and child to offer an interactive experience, inviting viewers to engage with the piece as they walk around it, as well as examining how shadows, layers, and movement are created as the sun shines through the piece. Just as the sculpture creates a personal connection between art and viewer, the image of the police officer and child represent the connection the officers have to the community as a whole and to each of us as individuals within this community that they serve. So, any questions?
Thank you, Monica. Do the aldermen have any questions? Alderman Davalos?
So do we know where the commemorative stone will be placed as when it's moved? It'll be somewhere visible, I assume.
We don't have an exact location yet, but I spoke with Jamie Clark at Public Works, and he said we would find another location for it. That may include moving the commemorative plaque that's on the large stone to a smaller stone, because right now the plaque, it's very hard to see it on the stone because it's a large stone, very small plaque. So we might change the size of the stone, but it would be moved somewhere around the police department, so it would stay in that general vicinity.
Okay. I just want to comment. I really like this. That's the first comment. But the second comment, I like it because I think it's representing more than what you're even saying. I am such a huge proponent of our police department and our officers and what they do and how they're trained to make us one of the safest cities in Illinois. I think it's quite remarkable that we tend to be ranked pretty high in this. And so safety to me is really a big theme. And I think what this sculpture does, I also think it's incredibly important that children always know that people like police officers, EMS, first responders, fire department, all this stuff, that those are all service people that they can trust. And I think sometimes the best way, they can read all they want, but look at this sculpture. It just says it all over it about safety and about these are safe people. These are people you turn to. And even for a nonverbal child, I mean, not nonverbal, but can't read yet, let's say small child, it's just such a wonderful visual of an important part of these officers and what they do. And so I just think it's about the officers, it's about the safety of the city, and it's about children and safety. So somehow it all comes together in this sculpture, and I just love it. So thank you very much.
Alderman Good?
Thanks. I have a couple of comments. First of all, would there be a plaque or title or signature affixed to the sculpture in any way?
Yeah, not necessarily fixed to the sculpture, but like our first project, it would have a plaque that would say, you know, the year that it was dedicated in the city, the name of the artist, and the title of it, if it has one. He's designing it for us, so I don't know yet if it has a title. But we are waiting until there is, with the new logo and the new corporate identity for the city, we're waiting for kind of a standard of design for signage of that type so that they all match. So yes, as soon as that is put in place.
Okay, so it might be some separate little plaque next to it or in the ground or?
It might be unless, which is the way it will be for the squirrel and the acorns at Leon Schmidt Park. That decision may depend on what ends up being designed as our standard for signage. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't have a sense of what we're waiting for on that. You know, the branding work group is included, but I guess if TAC is authorized to make that decision and move forward with it, then doing two at once would certainly make them consistent.
Yeah, I'm guessing, being a graphic designer in my former life, it would be typeface that would be used, and maybe type size, and just a style template kind of thing. So that's why we haven't done one yet for the other one. But yes, the answer is yes, it would have some kind of a signage, and we're just not sure yet. But it would match everything going forward, and you know, from this point, they would all kind of fit in the family of the new logo.
Well, I loved that we had the elementary school students submit names for the titles of the last one. So if we don't end up with a titled sculpture, maybe the artist would let us name it.
That would be wonderful.
I mean, I'm sure that that's, you know, in some sense also up to the artist. You know, you don't want to take that, like if he already has it named, then sometimes that's just the best way to go. I mean, I don't know. Naming somebody's art can be a very personal question.
That's a good question, and I will find out if he would have a title.
Okay. Secondly, just sort of walking over there does seem to be more than 7 square feet of grass. So I guess part of my question is, if we don't really have another place to move the boulder to, and if part of what you describe here is seeing things behind the statue, then is the idea to clear as much green space around it as possible? Is that why we have to move the boulder and the tree?
Well, the boulder and the tree are right in the corner, and when TAC went outside and kind of walked the perimeter of the police station around the block, everyone seemed to gravitate toward that corner. It's deeper. It has, the beautiful light post right above it, so that could shine on it, make it very visible for people taking a walk, at sunset or after. You'd still be able to see it. Just the place that the boulder is situated is the perfect distance from, just in that area. And so we did, our first thought was, oh no, that would have to be moved. Is that really a feasible place for that? But when we were, walking around, there's a lot of green area on that whole lot. And we did think about that. If it was moved, where could it go? And there, as we even just walked past the whole front, down the whole block on Warren Avenue, we saw places that we thought would be fine if indeed that boulder was kept, with that plaque on it. So there seemed to be a lot of places. So I don't know if we would want to just move the boulder back and not give the sculpture its own kind of space around it. We would want that to be the focal point of its installation spot, so not to have anything kind of competing with it. So,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Thank you. And I do think you guys are doing a great job, so let me just say that.
I would like to make one comment in that the position of the sculpture the position we chose to put it in, it was a good idea to put it on that corner, because just as we have the electronic sign on the corner, and it's easy to see from different corners there as you drive by one of the streets. We didn't want to put the sculpture in the front of the building because it would be difficult to see. You would have to drive by and look to the side, and we didn't want that to happen either. So this was really the best place for it. And also, that piece of land in itself really has to be graded down a little bit. It's somewhat of a little bit of a hill. So I know they'll have to do that. But I would like to thank all the commissioners on TAC, because they've worked very hard at this, and Christina also, because they've just gotten a lot of information together in a short period of time. It really is hard to try to figure out what it is you like, what will fit in to the theme of your city, the style of the city itself, what will fit in there, and stay within a budget. And it's really, really hard, and it's hard to have an artist actually create something for you, and then he has to do the same thing, he or she. Be able to understand what it is that you want, create that, and then have it made within a 12-month period. It's very, very difficult. And we've spent a lot of time, when we're not doing the grants, that's what we do. We try to figure out art. And it's very enjoyable. We like to do it, but it is very time-consuming. So I'd like to thank Monica in particular, because she understands art. She is an artist, and she has done a lot of homework on this, and we all really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I'm definitely in favor of this. I think the police department will enjoy this piece of artwork when they see it and when it's on their property. Okay, City Administrator?
Quick comment for people watching at home or that aren't sure what plaque and rock we're talking about that currently exists. There is right on the corner now, a very large rock, way bigger and out of proportion really with the plaque that's on it, but it commemorates the former home school, which was located there for many, many years. It's a very important historic marker, and so I'll just reiterate what's already been said. We will not lose that plaque or lose sight of it. It will be relocated so it's more visible, probably on a more appropriately sized rock. Public Works is already trying to figure out how they're going to move that large rock, probably with an end loader, so there'll be a lot of landscape restoration to be doing. But I want to assure people we're not going to lose that historic reference and monument to former school here. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Alderman Widener?
I was just referring to Alderman Bevere had a question.
Okay, Alderman Bevere?
Question about the sculpture. They make two grades of stainless steel, and one can actually get a film of rust on it, another doesn't. And I was just curious if there's going to be any maintenance issues, what grade of stainless they're using. It'd be nice to know. Thank you.
I don't know at this time. I do have pictures in this book of Matthew Plessick's work, and there is a beautiful picture it reminds us of the sculpture. You know, it's cut out like our sculpture would be, and I don't see rust on this one, but I'm not sure. But I can find out tomorrow. You know, if you.
I'm just thinking about less maintenance. You know.
Then, yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Now, Alderman Widener?
Yeah, I'm strongly in favor of these kinds of projects within the community. I think it creates a lot of positive conversations, and with that, I make a motion to recommend the City Council approve an agreement with Matthew Plessick of Plessick Studios Incorporated for the purchase of one stainless steel sculpture featuring a police officer and a child for $34,500 in fiscal year 20, including delivery and installation, and 2, direct staff to prepare a budget amendment to the fiscal year 20 budget for $4,500, and 3, authorize Public Works staff to assist in preparing the site identified for installation of the artwork.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Monica. Okay. On to number 2, consideration of accident investigation and employee safety training and education safety policy update. Again, Assistant City Administrator Christina White.
Thank you. As we've discussed many times now over the last few committee meetings, we are updating our safety policies here at the city. one by one and bringing them to the committee to be reviewed and approved. The next two on the list is the employee safety training and education policy and the accident investigation policies, both very important to the overall risk management and safety of our city departments. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. On Exhibit A, the new employee checklist, have we always had something like that? Or is this sort of a new concept?
We have had a similar form in the past, but this is a revised version of it. So this one focuses mostly on safety, and it covers some of the other broad topics. It'll be incorporated into our overall orientation checklist that we have for new employees.
Thank you. I really think it's good. I've seen a bunch of these, and this is good. So thank you.
Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, I was looking at the personal protective equipment analysis, and I sort of wondered how some of these questions and examples would apply to public works employees and police officers who do perform a lot of their tasks outdoors and in contact with a lot of people. So when you have, emergency responders, responding to a car accident, then sure, encounter blood splashes, that's possible, but it doesn't seem like any of these examples sort of represent the police. And, there's other things about heat, which don't seem to talk about extreme weather circumstances where employees might be outside and having to deal with a water main break during a heat wave. I mean, who knows? It's just that a lot of these examples, pouring molten metal, they're very specific, but they aren't the things our employees do.
Right. So most of these policies have come from our workers' compensation carrier, and we have made adjustments and changes to make them more specific to Warrenville. They don't cover everything. These are intended to be examples. I will say when it comes to the police department, of all the city departments, they have the most well-defined standard operating procedures and personal protective equipment definitions for the various tasks that they do. So they're fairly well covered by a lot of the different agencies that they work with just because of the nature of the work that they do. These tend to be more aimed towards public works and field employees that are working with heavy-duty equipment, and when it's correct to wear hard hats or gloves or glasses. But that is a good point to try to incorporate some of the police-specific things like handling bloodborne pathogens, which is its own policy that will be coming up. So some of that may be covered there, but it obviously doesn't hurt to include it in the PPE analysis sheet.
Sure. I mean, I'm not saying that any of these examples are wrong, and they do say et cetera, and they can be broader and more general. It just, it was pretty clear from reading it that it wasn't written for us. So I didn't know how much more of that we should spend time tailoring, or if that's appropriate. And I do think that obviously analysis of whether you should wear personal protective equipment. When you're a police officer, there's some very specific protective equipment that's part of the uniform, that's part of their standard equipment, that's part of their, car equipment. So it's possible that that's just a separate policy of what they carry, and it's not really covered by this, but just reading it, it wasn't clear to me. None of these exhibits or examples were given context of, well, this is meant for X people, but there's a separate policy. So I just wasn't sure, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We need a motion. Alderman Goodman?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council adopt the accident investigations and employee safety training and education policies effective immediately.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Bavir. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, consideration of a resolution regarding permits for city work in state right-of-way. That would be Deputy Public Works Director Phil Kugler.
Thank you. City has various infrastructure located in the IDOT rights-of-way that cross through the city, which would be Route 59 and Route 56. It could be sanitary sewer, water main, could be the new streetscape, the signs that were installed this past year. Typically, when anyone works in an IDOT right away, they require a permit and a surety bond. IDOT does, however, allow municipalities to pass a resolution that would be good for 2 years and would serve in lieu of a surety bond. We'd still be required to get permits for any work we do out there, because I think that helps IDOT document who's doing what at what time in their right of way and who might be responsible for different repairs or restorations. But the not having to get a surety bond each time staff is working outside and out in that right of way is important. If we do have contractors that are hired by the city, they would be required to get their own surety bond for IDOT, but for the city, we would not be required to. If council passes this resolution. The resolution is a template that IDOT provided us. The city attorney and I both worked at it, reviewed it, and the result of that resolution is in the agenda backup materials, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions? Comments? Questions? Alderman Goodman?
I don't really have any comments, so I'll just make the motion. I would like to make a motion to recommend that the City Council pass a resolution regarding permits granted by the State of Illinois Department of Transportation for the construction, operation, and maintenance of city-owned street improvements.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Goodman, a second by Alderman Bevere. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving right along. Number 4, consideration of agreement for sanitary sewer system evaluation survey. Again, Deputy Public Works Director Phil Kugler.
Thank you. The city started our infiltration and inflow reduction program, or I&I reduction program, last year by doing some flow monitoring in the highest priority basin. And this year again, and we've started flow monitoring in the second highest priority basin. This contract that's the proposal that's attached or included with the agenda backup materials is for Engineering Enterprises to perform a sanitary sewer system evaluation survey, which involves testing some field work by city staff, which would include televising the sanitary sewer within that basin, as well as the sanitary sewer services with the new camera that we've purchased, as well as there's going to be manhole inspections that city staff will hire another vendor to perform. They'll analyze, I think there are 89 manholes within this basin. They'll analyze those and give us those results. And there's also smoke testing, which is something we're going to have to communicate with the public before we do the smoke testing in that basin. That's going to involve blowing smoke into the sanitary sewer lines, which then, as that smoke leaves the lines through some of the defects that might be there, it might come up through the ground. A lot of it will come up through the stacks, the plumbing that goes through some people's houses, and come up through the rooftop that people wouldn't even notice it, except for it goes up through the rooftop. But it'll also help us identify illegal sump pump connections that might be where there are individual homes that are connected to the sanitary sewage. Obviously, that would be a big source of stormwater that would be getting into the sewer. But the staff will gather the results of all those investigations, provide those to Engineering Enterprises. They will evaluate that. They will document all the deficiencies and defects in the system, and then come up with a plan of attack for addressing those next fiscal year. And part of their documentation of that will be an estimate of costs to deal with those, so we can budget appropriately for that in next year's budget. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Davalos.
I don't have a question, but I would like to ask you, this is a very expensive project over many years. And so I just want people to understand, if you could just take just a couple of sentences just to explain what's the overall reason that we're doing this? I mean, why would we be doing this? It's for people that are out there that don't really, maybe haven't heard other times we've talked about it.
The main reason is the sanitary sewer system is meant for sanitary flows, people's toilets, washers, kitchen sinks and things like that to flow into the sanitary sewer that is transported by underground pipes down to Naperville, and they have a treatment plant that treats that water. When we let stormwater in, whether it be through sump pump connections or if there's infiltration getting in through the ground and openings in the pipe joints and things like that, that is stormwater, that's clean water that's being then sent down to Naperville and treated. And they monitor and meter the amount of water that's sent down to them, and they charge the city for treatment of that. So for a very simple way, we're paying for water that doesn't need to be treated by Naperville. The other part of that, though, is when you allow storm water into the sanitary sewer system, it can overload the system. It can overload our system. It could overload Naperville's system downstream, and that can cause problems with backups into homes and things like that. It can also, if there's storm water flowing down the pipe that is leaves less room in the pipe, especially during rain events, for new developments such as the developments that are ongoing in Warrenville right now to make it down there. So as part of memorandum of understanding we have with Naperville, I think 2 years ago now, we pledged to begin an I&I reduction program to reduce I&I that's in our system heading down to them. And they would then, as part of that, on their end, keep signing off on IEPA permits, because they're ultimately with some of the sanitary sewer in their town that transports the water to the wastewater treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant. They have to sign off in a couple of spots on IEPA permits for when developers or when the city extends sewer mains.
Thank you very, very much. I think it's important that we all, especially the public, understand the overreaching goal and that we really need to do this. Thank you.
Alderman Goodman?
Can you talk a little bit more about the smoke testing? I don't think that that's something I'm familiar with. I'm sure that a lot of people at home watching are not familiar with that. What kind of smoke is it? Are people going to see it? Are they going to smell it? Can you just talk about it a little bit more and give us more of a sense of what this is like?
They will certainly see it. I'm not entirely sure of the odor of it, but in each segment of sanitary sewer, the staff is going to be handling this. They'll plug one into the sanitary sewer pipe and they'll blow smoke into the section of sanitary sewer between two manholes. And there are various connections, home connections, business connections to the sewer. And if there are openings in the pipe, if the pipe joints have separated a little bit, the smoke could come up through the ground, so you could see smoke coming up out of the ground. If your sump pump is connected, you could potentially see smoke going into your house somewhere, wherever that illegal connection is. There will also be smoke that comes out through the there's piping that is part of your sanitary sewer piping in your house that goes up to the rooftop, that opens up the air to vent the gases out of there, and that a lot of the smoke will come out of those openings in the rooftop. But people will definitely see it. Staff we're working with Engineering Enterprises to come up with an appropriate door hanger and notifications for the areas where we're going to be doing this work, so people are warned about it. We'll at the same time get something out on Facebook and probably on the website. And we'll alert frontline staff that it's going on in a particular area, so that way if people call in and didn't see their door hanger, they would be able to, the frontline staff could handle those questions right away.
Okay, I mean, it's not just a question of, bad smell. Some people have allergies, some people have asthma. You want to be very careful with introducing smoke into people's houses, especially people who might have medical conditions. And I guess my question is, can you be a little more specific about what the smoke is?
I honestly, I would have to find out more. John Satter, our utilities supervisor, is the one who researched the smoke to verify that our staff can actually do it. I can find out more information about that, included in the city council packet for next week if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Alderman Ashour?
Would you please explain how the smoke testing will help identify illegal sump connections?
If a sump pump is connected, it'll be connected generally on the inside of the house to the plumbing. What we'd end up finding is that the smoke would be seen inside the house, and then people would call and say there's smoke in my house, and we'd have to then investigate how that is. I mean, it's possible also that if there's not water in their traps and things like that, smoke could come up through the floor drain, the trap in the floor drain, or in the plumbing somewhere inside the house. But I would anticipate that we would end up hearing from the residents if there's smoke in their house. And part of the notification is going to be to give them a number to call so we can come investigate if that's happening.
Well, I know in my sump pumps that go outside, the pump's underwater. So if it's connected to your sewer line, there's no way for the smoke to get out. I mean, if I was to connect mine to a sewer line, I'm on septic, so it's not a smart thing. But if I had an illegal connection and I was blowing smoke back in, I don't understand how that would identify the problem.
It probably wouldn't if the plumbing was all good and tight. I would imagine a lot of these connections are done by people who aren't plumbers. But if the plumbing was done with PVC pipe where it's connected and they're tight connections, it wouldn't, because there's a valve to prevent water from going back down into the sump pit once it pumps. So that would prevent that from showing up in the sump pit. And as you said, the sump pump itself is underwater. I would think where you'd see that is if there's bad connections that are made by homeowners because there's a convenient pipe here to get rid of the water.
Is there going to be any dye testing or anything associated with this that'll really truly identify sumps that are pumping into the sewer? I mean, that's a big part of this whole process, and identifying those is very important. And it should be spelled out as part of what we're trying to accomplish. And you know, I mean, that's our problem. We're putting too much water in Naperville and we're paying for it. So it's important that that's kind of where all this started. We just have too much infiltration. So I don't see the smoke testing really, it doesn't make sense to me how that's gonna help it, but there has to be some other testing that we can do that prevents that. And I'm happy to hear any suggestions, but I think it should be part of this program and spelled out pretty clearly and be required.
And I think some of the televising the sanitary sewers has helped in locations where we've had clean water just consistently coming in there. That's clearly not like, you know, discharge from a dishwasher. There's no suds in it or anything like that. There's no debris in it. It's we've identified a few locations already with televising where there's been some pumps connected into the system. And I think with the new camera we have, where we can actually televise not just the main line but the laterals, the services to the homes, we should have a better sense too of what might be coming in there. I mean, we can determine what the condition of those lines are. If the lines are good and tight and there's a lot of clear water coming in from the home, they'll be identified as a suspect location. Ultimately, some of the stuff where if there are sump pump connections, there's going to have to be a change in policy by the city and how we're going to have to address how we deal with those if we discover that there are, X number of suspected sump pump connections, giving us, aside from just asking the people if we can go and look. Some people are, on that Harvest and Lakeview project that we performed, there was a gentleman who did identify that I think my sump pump is connected. Can you come take a look at it? And then we were able to work with him, so he connected it to the storm sewer instead. There will be people that voluntarily do that because they might have bought the house in that condition. But there are people that if they did the work, they don't want to get in trouble, so they may not report or self-report that there's an issue or they suspect there's an issue. So at some point when we get down to the point where there's just suspected sump pumps that are connected that haven't come forward, then we're going to have to work with council to figure out how we address those situations.
Maybe while this is going on, we can include something with the water bills that let people know how important it is that there's some pumps not discharged, that it is against the law, different things that can be part of the process. I'm happy for any suggestions about that, but I think it would be, public awareness is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Kreschel.
Thanks. So this is phase 2, right? So could you help remind me what phase 1 was and what kind of data or repairs or anything that were made from that first initial, and kind of why did we break it into phases, I guess? Is it from a cost perspective or time?
Yeah, it spreads out the cost. There's also a time component to it. So the phase 1 on each of one of the basins is flow monitoring. So that Engineering Enterprises contracts with a subcontractor to place meters or monitors in different locations within the basin. EEI just strategically picks where would be important to determine those flows, and the purpose of the flow monitoring is help to determine where you might have. They develop some baseline flows when it's not raining, but it's helpful during, like, I think they do during May generally, May and into June for about 6 weeks. It's helpful to then have periods of no rain and periods of rain, so you develop a kind of baseline flow maybe overnight where people aren't flushing toilets and things like that typically. And then during a rainstorm, you see where the flows increase at a higher rate than other locations. And they start to focus on it helps them to focus on those areas as opposed to the entire basin.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we need a motion. Alderman Goodman.
I would like to make a motion to recommend the City Council pass a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Engineering Enterprises Incorporated for the completion of Phase 2 and the infiltration and inflow investigation of the West 3 Basin in an amount of $55,258 and authorizing the City Administrator to execute the proposal.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Bevere. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 5, this is an informational update on Public Works Department FY20 Work Plan and Decision Package. Does anyone have any questions? for the staff. Alderman Bevere?
Yeah, I was just curious, the Southwest District elevated water tower, it says we're negotiating on a land purchase for the location of that tower. I was just curious where that location is.
Where the what location that is at? It's on the Thornton's property, so the southwest corner of Duke
Yeah,
Park,
for
right?
the property purchase to build the tower on, I guess that's what it's about.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth a little bit with originally Bluestone, who's the developer of the property, and now Thornton's has been involved because they're, I believe, purchasing the property from Bluestone. So we've just now gotten a response today from Thornton's with a request for some information. So Ron Mentor and I are going to respond to that this week.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that was the information only. Number 6 is informational update also on Public Works service levels and staffing study. Alderman Goodman?
I think this is a good point to mention Management Analyst Miller, since his hiring was one of the key findings of this staffing study. And since his work on this has changed an almost blank chart to one which is now, not complete, but a lot closer. And just noting how much progress we've made on some of these goals, thanks to his efforts, thanks to the Public Works Department's efforts. It's really just reading through the progress that's been made on this and reading through, how close we are to being done with some of these things and how many of these things are checked off. Just what a difference in a short period of time, my goodness. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, that was information, again, information only. We have nothing under miscellaneous and nothing under closed session. We just need one more motion, and Alderman Goodman.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.